My name is Kenneth Joyner. I'm 28 years old. I've been in the ministry now for almost 23 months. I grew up, was raised by just my mother. I've never met my father. So growing up, my mother done the best that she could to provide for us. A lot of times her best still wasn't good enough. We would come home and everything that we owned would be on the front porch, and we would have an eviction notice, and it would be time to pick up and start all over again. And that became a massive pattern in my life. Due to how much my mother worked, I was left with a lack of accountability in my life. I was 14 years old the first time I tried drugs. That continued on for almost 10 years of my life. I was 16 years old when I found out that my mother was diagnosed with a terminal kidney disease. She left to go live in an assisted living facility, and that left me to be homeless. Everybody in my family that wanted to help me, I wasn't willing to receive the help that they had for me. All I really wanted to do was find more drugs and get high. At the age of 18, because of the crimes that I'm committing to provide for my drug addiction, I'm in and out of jail constantly. And just like every time I would go to jail, I would call my mom and she would say the same thing. We're going to get through this one day at a time. I was 24 years old and I got arrested, and somehow I lied to the judge and I convinced this judge to let me out on house arrest. As soon as the judge let me out of the jail, I cut the ankle monitor off that they had placed on me. I threw it in the trash can and I was going again. That lasted for about a week, and I get picked up for the very last time, and I'm sitting in jail and I know that I'm going to prison. And I decided to call my mom, and my mom was so heartbroken. And apart from myself, my mother was the only thing in the world that I cared about. My mom expressed to me how disappointed she was in me and how she just wanted me to grow up and be a man. She told me she wasn't going to live forever, and that the last thing she wanted to see was me be the man that she raised me to be. I got off the phone with my mother, and that same night's where I decided to give my life to Jesus Christ. I realized the best I could do in my own strength was homelessness, a 10-year drug addiction, and a prison sentence. I went from that county jail and I went on to prison, and I served my time in prison, and upon my release I had nowhere to go. My grandmother, who is 81 years old, said that I could stay on her couch for 1 month, but that wasn't going to work, and I went back to God in prayer, and I believe 100% through my prayers for a place to go that my prayers were answered. I received a letter from a gentleman who was my youth pastor all the way back in 2010. He explained to me about the program and told me that he was always praying for me, how he seen me as one of his own children. And to me, that meant a lot coming from another man. He said if I would agree to come to Loving Hands, that he would pick me up the day I got released from prison. So through contact with Keith Stolte, I agreed to come to Loving Hands. I was released from prison on June 1st of 2020. And that gentleman who was my youth pastor was waiting in the parking lot with his brother. They picked me up from the prison, and the same day I was in Loving Hands. That was almost 23 months ago. God has been so faithful through everything. I've gotten my GED since I've been here. I dropped out of school almost 10 years ago. I've gotten my driver's license back. Even in the bad things, God has been faithful. December 27th of 2020, my mother passed away. But I know that my mom is in heaven because after I received Jesus Christ, I call my mom on the phone while I'm still in jail, witness to my mother, and my mother receives Jesus Christ. So I know that I'll see my mom again. I'm less than a month and a half away from graduating, the most difficult thing I've ever committed my life to, but at the end it's the most rewarding because I'll have a relationship with Jesus Christ that's going to last me for the rest of my life. The verse that I want to leave you with is Philippians chapter 3, verse 8. It says, "What is more, I consider everything a loss compared to the surpassing greatness of knowing Christ Jesus my Lord, for whose sake I have lost all things. I count them as rubbish that I may gain."